and interesting career stories and paths to where they are today. Part of the nature and the joy that we derive from alumni work is giving pirates out there the opportunity to reflect on their student days and their journeys to where they are now. So while we're capturing that, there's also an opportunity for recent grads, current students, and whoever to learn from these journeys and stories. Pirates Path seeks to bring you all alumni with very impressive backgrounds and experience, and I'm looking forward to sharing that with you all and Pirates nationwide. Our hope is that hearing these great stories, you'll glean some interesting strategies or tales of overcoming adversity that you can apply to your journey as well. We're happy to be joined today by a great pirate and great friend, Mr. Greg Hedgepeth. As we get started, I want to share quick ground rules and some format info with you. I should let you know first that we are recording this session so that our friends who couldn't be here can access it later. So please note that we will record both the screens and the chats. We've muted all your lines as we meet our guest Greg, and for optimal viewing experience, you should select speaker view, which can be found on the upper right-hand corner of your screen. Also, we ask that you keep those lines muted for the duration of the program. We'll get started by asking some questions, but at any time you can ask a question in the chat by clicking on the word bubble labeled chat in the user menu at the bottom of your screen. I am thankful in advance for your patience and understanding as we navigate the ins and outs of the technology. One more thing before we kick off, there is a poll appearing on your screen. We quickly wanted to check and see if our attendees here today have updated their contact info with us, if you're on the ECU Connect platform, and about other events you might be interested. That poll is coming up, and we'll give you a second to dive right in. That was exciting because we hadn't talked about the poll, and I was really hoping it would pop up. I have fantastic free safeties behind me. Love it. All right, let me go ahead and answer this.
As they say, Scott, it's always good to have a support team, right? Like it's always good to have good support.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can do nothing without it. Okay, we'll get rolling. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our guest on the Pirates Path program. We're joined today by Mr. Greg Hedgepeth. Greg is a first-generation college student where he received his undergraduate degree in economics with a minor in business administration, followed by his master's in management and leadership with a minor in marketing from Webster University. Greg has been in the field of higher education and communication for over 10 years, serving in leadership roles at the divisional and university level. He's an active member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, the Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Free and Accepted Masons of North Carolina and Jurisdictions Incorporated, along with several other community-based organizations. Greg was co-founder and co-chair of the ECU African American Male Mentor Program, chair of the Florida Atlantic University Urban Male Initiative, a leadership cluster facilitator, a Shelton Leadership Challenge instructor, and has presented a number of minority men of color summits around the country. Believe it or not, this is just one person we're talking about. So Greg, thank you for joining us here on Pirates Path with ECU alumni.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. It is a pleasure and an honor and humbled. As I listen to you spill off some of that stuff, I go, is he talking about me? Like, yeah.
Start looking around like, is somebody else coming behind me?
Yeah, whoever that guy is, he sounds like he's pretty interesting. Like,
So I guess to open us up, given the situation globally, I feel like my first question should be, how are you? Where are you? What's life been like since around May 15th or so?
Oh my goodness, man. Let me tell you, if I think everyone on the line will understand, and anyone that watches this later would understand if I just did this. Right? Like we were talking backstage, if you will, virtually a few moments ago about just, man, when this thing hit, this ongoing pandemic, if you will, has certainly made us all adjust, right? And find unique ways to still push forward and get it done. I come right now in our office here at I'll say the name, NC State University. So I'm coming to you all right now via our office here at NC State. But typically I work from home. I get the opportunity to not only work from home, but wear the hat of third grade educator, daycare to a 2-year-old, and everything else in between. So just trying to figure out how we can, continue to have both mental capacity and grace, if you will, to get it done.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the pack there, and we'll get back to how you got there. But first, want to check in on your origin story, if you will. So you live and work in I'll call it the Greater Raleigh area now, and we'll get to how you got there. But I've heard you a couple times refer to home as being Halifax County.
Born and raised.
Where in Halifax are you from, and what should I know? What are some of the signature characteristics or common artifacts of someone from Halifax County?
You're looking at him. No, I'm just joking. but yes, I always start out by saying, I'm just a country boy born and raised in Halifax County. I was Halifax County in the sense Roanoke Rapids, North Carolina. I've got a number of people from the infield Hollister area, as well as the Littleton, North Carolina space as well. I saw somebody in the chat say, "Me too." Always good to meet someone from Halifax. I guess if I had to say from a historical perspective, something to characterize the place itself, and I believe it or not, I had to look this up. It was the birthplace of freedom, or some would say independence. It was the first to adopt the Halifax County Resolves, I think it is, which was, I think, one of the first official actions by an American colony to calling for its independence from Great Britain, right? I think I started that out by saying that's what some would say. For me, it's people, right? And the person that's from Halifax County who may be able to attest to this as well understands exactly what I mean when I say that. It is the resilience of its people. It is the unique pride that one takes in being from that space. And I'll get to this a little later on in my story, but it's just something about the family and the way we carry ourselves within that space. And it's home to, I would consider a large amount of farming and agriculture. So.
Excellent. Okay, so growing up in Halifax, when I grew up, I knew maybe a handful of kids who grew up knowing exactly what they wanted to do with their lives. Several who thought they knew. I wanted to be a center fielder for the New York Yankees, and for the, I believe, 25th straight year, I have not been called on draft day. But so growing up, was that you? Did you know exactly? Do you remember what you wanted to be growing up?
Oh my goodness, absolutely not. And anytime someone asked the question, I figured out a way to avoid it as quickly and as often as possible. But I'll share with you that as I speak about the resilience of its people, man, I grew up to a family of sharecroppers. A mother that successfully got her high school diploma at the late age of in her 20s, right? Late 20s. I grew up to a grandfather who had a middle school education, but figured out a way to make sure he had his 40 acres and his mule, and ensure that every one of his children had food on the table and a space, right? A plot of space that they could call their own. And, good, hardworking farm folks, man. And I didn't know where or what I was to do, right? Some folks from that space would tell you that, those legacies, those folks that come from that space, those town heroes, if you will, to some degree were few and far in between. But I'll never forget the lesson that was taught to me, and I won't belabor the question, but my grandfather, I was a knucklehead. I always wanted to race motorcycles and hang out, and my grandfather, I never forget, it took me to a field And I'm telling you, we from the country, Scott, so we don't never do anything the right way. So these were those country lessons learned. But my grandfather, he took me out into a field at probably the age of 11 or 12. And as far as the eye could see, it was nothing but woodline. And again, I'm from a single parent home. God bless my late father. He took me into this field. And again, as far as you can see, nothing but woodline. And I'll never forget it. He gave me a gun. And he said, shoot out there into that wood line. And 11, 12 years old, already thinking I'm the man, right? As folks say, smelling yourself. I did that. I shot that gun, man, and I was pow, 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 all over the place. And turned my head and everything as I did it. And then my grandfather snatched the gun out of my hand, walked out there probably about 10, 15 yards. He came back, loaded the gun up again and gave it to me. He said, son, this time I want you to shoot out there. But when you shoot out there this time, I want you to hit that box. And when I tell you, Scott, everything about my demeanor changed in that moment. I went from pow, 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 all over the place to, and just really trying. I mean, I was trying my best to hit that target. And what my grandfather was teaching me in that moment was find your why. Find your meaning, have a purpose. Because when he snatched that gun that second time, he said, son, you have to have a reason to get up and be shooting in the first place. Because it's real easy and fun to shoot out there aimlessly into the tree line, but you ain't got nothing to measure your success by. What did you hit, right? And in that moment, it was when I said, I got to figure out a way to do something, right? I got to be more than. So that's exactly how I would answer that question is, did I know at that point what I wanted to be? Absolutely not. But did that lesson stick with me and sticks with me to this day? Absolutely. As I continue to try to figure out what I want to be when I grow up.
Right. So tell us, how'd you end up at ECU?
Whew. So I'll share support. Right? Support is so important. I mentioned it a few minutes ago when I said you got to have a team of folks around you. And I did, as a first generation college student, there were limited opportunities where I came from, Northwest Halifax, during that time frame. Right. And I remember having a cousin and her husband come to me and say, you're going to do something. Right. You're going to go off to school. I had my first job at like 15 and a half. My mom got my permit. I was working at Hardee's and she was like, you don't plan on doing that. Shout out to everybody that's in fast food. I appreciate you. But she was like, you don't want to do that for the rest of your life, do you? And I went, I don't know. No. And she started taking me around to all of these various college open houses. And we visited historically Black colleges and universities, North Carolina Central, North Carolina A&T. We went down to Fayetteville State. We went all the way to Blacksburg, man. We went to Virginia Tech, and I'll never forget the lady. I said, man, there are no AC, no air conditions in the room, no AC units. And she said, you won't need it. She's like, you won't need it. She's like, if you look out there, that lake, it freezes over in the winter. And I said, oh no, I don't want to come here. Like, shout out to everybody who went to VTech, but no, I don't want to do that. And I had a chance to visit also the NC States and the UNCs and got accepted, man. That was so cool to be accepted to all those places that I filled out applications. But when I went to East Carolina University, I cannot make this up. And I think students, even that I talk to this day, say this, it was just big enough, right? It was just right. And immediately there was a support network. There were some folks that latched on to me and I to them, and they wanted to ensure my success. And that was it for me. That's all I needed to make that choice. And it was a lot easier for me.
Excellent. So did you live on campus your freshman year?
I sure did. Garrett Hall, man. And a funny story there is when I had the chance to do the open house and the tour and everything, that was one of the selling points, right? Look at the little country boy from Halifax County. It's like, man, they got sinks in the room. So
remember the room number?
Oh my goodness. I do not. I know we were on the second floor though. I just remember that routine of having to get up and rush down the flight of stairs. I always took the stairs. The elevator was too slow. I took the stairs and just made it to class on time. I can say that because my mama ain't watching.
You got there. You got there.
That's it. And that's why that sink was so important, because I could wash my face, brush my teeth, and get right on out of there. So
Excellent. And then what else were you involved in college? I made mention to some of the stuff in the open, but what were you involved in while you were on campus?
oh my goodness, I was so overactive. I was one of those folks that couldn't say no to anything and wanted to be a part of everything. So you name it. I was in NAACP. I was in the Black Student Union. I was a part of SGA. Shout out to M. Cole Jones, one of the first African-American presidents. I was served on his cabinet. I had the opportunity to even be in the modeling troupe, man. Like I was a member of the Ambiance modeling group. And it was so cool, man. It was a different experience. I got to meet some really cool people, man. I served on the ECU Campus Rec and Wellness Student Advisory Board that slowly transitioned into the Student Advisory Council, and just so had a number of opportunities to be involved. None more, I think, important or contributed to my overall wellness and holisticness or experience than the Ladonia Wright Cultural Center. Having worked there as a student, having had the opportunity to kind of meet new people and experience other cultures, it was so cool to be involved and serve in that space. Baxter Hall.
I was going to say, what so the physical space of the cultural center back then, where was it at that point when you were in school?
So I'm not sure if it's even still there now. I don't think it is. It like, but the that little freestanding building that was between the Rec Center, Mendenhall Student Center, and Garrett Hall. It was the Ladonia Wright Cultural Center held a special place, man, because it was that very small, tight knit. 4 offices upstairs, 2 of which were occupied, 1 meeting room and the larger gallery space. It had a kitchen. I mean, it was very much that experience that again, just kind of continued to build that support for me. So I'm not sure if it's even, is it still there?
It is still there.
Yeah, but what is it used for now? Because I know the cultural center is over in the new student center.
In the new student center, yes. I don't know what the purpose of the building is now. It's there, and I pass by it all the time.
Yeah.
Obviously, these days, and I've been in the house for the last 7 months, so
that's what I'm saying, right?
Not a lot of people going in and out at the moment, but
yes,
I would find that out though.
Yeah.
Okay, so last question about your student experience. Fall Saturday, while you're in school. What's your home football game routine? What do you do? Where did you typically go?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So during my time, man, believe it or not, our first stop was the Rec Center. Like we were a committed group of like, we went in there and we played ball like till just about till game time, like most of the time. And we would then kind of make our way to, I was never a big drinker, so we would always find our way to some good food though, right? It's like as a college student, you wanted to make sure you got some good food. And so I shout out to Miss Bernice, because that was she was there and made sure that I got food out of the dining hall. But we always felt that them Saturdays during home game days, we were gonna eat well. And so we would go around to the different student orgs and Greek life spaces and eat. But because of my ties to the university as a more of like an employee, I had the opportunity to go and experience some tailgating in the like more faculty, staff, alumni capacity, and that was really cool. But I always found myself in the like going into the game early, right? Like I was one of those that, I played ball in high school, and I always wanted to see that pregame workout or hear the announcements and what's happening. And every so often would kind of sit at the gate at the end zone, and in some cases even have the opportunity to experience the on the field, just because ask, right? Like my grandfather always told me, he said, you have not because you ask not. And so we'd be standing there at the gate or something and would see one of ECU police officers or some of the faculty, some of the folks that were, you know, the on field staff or personnel, and be like, man, you mind if we just stand right here and watch? And sure enough, they would let us. And so I remember those days. That was before it got so strict and, you know, security and all of that stuff, man. It was, I'm not that old, but those were the good old days.
That's right. Okay, so fast forward a little bit. It's spring break of your senior year at ECU. People are starting to ask, what are you doing next year? Did you have an answer at that point? Did you have a plan? Did that question make you sweat or did it make you smile?
Man, it made me smile. And the reason it did was because I already had a job, right? I truly am grateful to just the sheer number of folks that made sure I had an opportunity along the way at East Carolina University. And pirates hiring pirates is a real thing. You know, it's one thing to go there, but it's another thing to go there and folks believe in the education that you're receiving from there, so much so that they give you an opportunity thereafter. And that's exactly what happened for me. I believe my junior year, and the number kind of escapes me a little bit. It was somewhere around 28,780 or so, but that was my full-time salary that was offered to me. Believe it or not, even as a junior, like I was a junior going into the senior year type of, and we had this hybrid agreement. But I would shout out to Dr. Corey King, who was at the time the Assistant Vice Chancellor of Student Experiences over in the Division of Student Affairs, who gave me that opportunity to go and showcase just what I could do as a pirate. So
Bald Corey King with the goatee?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So look at that. See how big the world and small it is at the same time?
Corey King drove me back to the airport after my interview, where I eventually got my first job out of grad school.
Wow.
Where he was in charge of judicial at that university.
Oh my, listen, man, I'm telling you, just the sheer, what is it? The 6 degrees of separation, right? Just the networking and how you meet people and how you, it says something, man, about just the world and how we encounter people and how we experience them, because we never know how they'll come back or manifest themselves again in our lives. So
right. Okay, so tell us about the first job. Where'd you go? What'd you do? I know how much you made now.
So during that first job, I was the webmaster for the Department of Student Experiences. So I was over in Mendenhall Student Center and had the opportunity to do all of the websites that fell in the preview and under that department at the time. Kind of in that space transitioned during that time into this like coordinator of web development, marketing, and assessment. And that's what really, like, you know, my degree was in economics with a minor in business administration. But it was something during that time frame of being a student and working over at the Ladonia Wright Cultural Center. I was like, I'm from Halifax County. I'm a problem solver, right? And so I took the opportunity to join the beta testing for the web development content management system called at the time Common Spot that we were going to be using. And so again, talking and networking with folks over in IT and what have you and university marketing, that kind of set me up, if you will, to be able to just kind of transition throughout the university that first year. So it started out with a particular title, but quickly evolved into me doing all types of stuff in the realm of marketing, communications, and public relations. So it was a really cool experience.
Excellent. And then how long did you stay there? And then where'd you move on after that?
So going back to it, man, pirates hiring pirates. My initial career journey was a number of elevated opportunities within the same institution. And so I always share that from a marketing, communications, creative perspective. Even with my team here, I tell them often, it's like, man, I've done that, right? And I say that not to be, boastful, but to say, like, I've been where you are and I understand the process by which you're going to undertake to get it done. And so I served as a web developer. from a department perspective, moved on to work with a number of folks as we created the first marketing communications team within the Division of Student Affairs. Shout out to every person that made that happen, from Heather Wilkinson to at the time, Dr. Fiona Baxter, you name it. Those folks saw something in me and gave me an opportunity to join that team, which served the entire division, all of the departments within the Division of Student Affairs for its marketing, communications, web development efforts. And then fast forward, right, because of that networking and serving on a number of committees, had the opportunity to again be promoted within the university and serve over at University Marketing and Communications as from a junior web developer to senior web developer. And so I just think about just running the gamut, if you will, and continuously taking those steps to increase both knowledge, experience, and exposure to get to that next level.
Right, right. And what a great opportunity, especially during that time in the country when, right in 08, I guess by the time you graduated, it hadn't gotten real bad yet, but just a couple months after that, all the markets kind of went kaput. And for a student graduating with an economics degree to be able to smoothly transition into higher ed really is awesome set of breaks.
Yeah, it speaks to parallels, right? Like even now in my life, the number of different hats that I wear, and I think we've even joked about this a couple of different times on some alumni calls. Those parallels are what allowed me to do that, right? It's like most people get out, and I promise you, I thought I was gonna go back to Roanoke Rapids or Halifax County and be the best economic city planner that ever existed, but those parallels come into your life for a reason, right? Those multiple streams of revenue, branches, roots of a tree, if you will, and you've just got to take them. You've got to find unique ways to make them work in your favor and focus, if you will. Not the shotgun approach, but the multiple shot approach is what I look at it as.
Right. The not firing in the woods randomly, but taking your focus. Excellent. And so did someone encourage you to go continue education, get a master's? Was that something you came up with on your own?
No, well, you know what? I think as all of us find along our journey, there's a certain level by which before you can even knock on the door, there's some additional training, experience, exposure that you're going to have. And as grateful as I was to the opportunities that I had, I knew in order for me to get to that next space that I wanted to be, I wouldn't even call it next level, but to that next space that I wanted to help me further connect the dots, it was going to take some additional training, some learning, another credential, if you will. And it just speaks to being in the higher education space. One can't exist in that space within Division of Student Affairs or just on a college campus and not believe in furthering one's education to be able to obtain whatever it is they're looking for. And so that was me, right? Just being around the academic space. It was, I got to go and study this. And a shout out to, and I apologize for keep doing this, but at the time it was Chancellor Ballard who saw something in me and gave me an opportunity, along with Dr. Virginia Hardy, bless her heart, to allow me to go and be a part of the Chancellor's Leadership Academy. And it was then that this thing called leadership, I wanted to know more about it, right? I wanted to know how one obtains it, those positions, how does one think in those positions, and how can I become one of those transformational leaders, if you will. And so it was the perfect opportunity to do that.
Excellent. Excellent. So let's fast forward a little bit now. And what got you interested, and we'll still get to how you got into that red and black, but what got you interested in entrepreneurship? You've got some entrepreneurial things going on at this point in your life.
Oh man, absolutely. And thank you for mentioning that. So I'm the president and CEO of Substantial Media LLC, the publisher of Substantial Magazine. And it started, again, I go back to those roots, man, Halifax County, being born and raised to folks that figured out a way to make money, right? Whether that was selling tobacco, peanuts, soybeans, or finding things that they could grow organically and sell. It was, my grandfather owned a garden, and I still have the newspaper clipping. I got it from my mom because I want to preserve it, of him having grown the largest cabbage in Halifax County, right? And I remember him selling it, and it's just those small memories, right? But fast forward, for me, I think that's that entrepreneurial spirit, right? And having that entrepreneurial spirit that exists even at the university level and in my career. One of the more famous mentors, I guess, or folks that I read about, was Earl Graves, and how he said, run your life as your business, right? Whether it's a career, whether it's a business, but run it as such. And so, just having that entrepreneurial mindset has always been there. And so when we created Substantial Media LLC, we did so to kind of connect a passion, right? And again, going back to that why, connecting this notion of, man, God has given me these gifts and talents and abilities to create things from a marketing communications perspective. And I think there's some space that exists for me to help innovate as it related to Black owned and operated media. And I wanted to begin to kind of go along that route and do that. And we've been pretty successful thus far. We just recently received the NT Idea grant, and super excited to continue to move those endeavors forward.
Excellent. Okay, so let's get to how you ended up at NC State. And full disclosure, I'm still kind of new here, so I don't have any deep-seated anything against NC State.
Yeah. Hey, look, I remember, what was it? The Battle of the Barrel, where it was ECU and NC State. And man, let me tell you, that was the rivalry, man. But it's funny journey, man. I go back to those life connections, right? And you heard me mention Dr. Corey King having given me my very first opportunity. And now I want to prereq this by saying none of those opportunities would have been so had not, it been for hard work, right? And being able to actually show that you're somebody who someone should take a chance on or give that opportunity to. But starting there, I remember being at ECU. I took some time off and even served in law enforcement, right? I served for the city of Greenville's police department and worked down in Edgecombe County for the town of Pine Tops. Made my way back to the Division of Student Affairs at East Carolina University, and got a phone call one day from Dr. Corey King. And Dr. King said, hey, listen, man, I need you to come up. I know you've got your consultant business, and I want you to take a look at some stuff for me. And I went down to sunny South Florida, and I promise you I'll get to the point. I went down to sunny South Florida, Boca Raton. And I knew then he was trying to recruit me. Like, I just kind of could tell it, right? It was like, man, they got really nice golf courses. I was into golf, right? So they got really nice golf courses here. And man, look at how we're building some stuff over here, doing this stuff. And I was like, yeah, that's all good. That's nice. Then he hits me with, and you were a part of creating that first Division of Student Affairs marketing communications team at ECU, right? It's like, yeah, it was. He's like, I want to do that here. I was like, man, well, I got a wife and some kids. Like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to move all the way to South Florida. We got a family. Let me go check. Shout out to my wife who's on the call. She was like, yeah, let's do it. And when you talk about support system, she has been there for me and supported me throughout every decision that I've made as far as career and entrepreneurial efforts. So we went to South Florida, man, where I served as Chief Communications Officer and Director for Marketing and Technology for Florida Atlantic University's Division of Student Affairs and Enrollment Management. I know that's a mouthful, but I enjoyed every bit of it. But home continued to call. And so just in networking and finding unique ways to always be a part of something as it related to back home. I got a couple of folks I reached out to and said, hey, listen, I'm thinking about coming home and I'm looking for some opportunities. And believe it or not, man, folks start shooting them to me left and right. And I think, again, it's a testament to character and ability. And they gave me the right folks to talk to. I filled out the right applications, and man, I can't thank the Institute for Emerging Issues here at North Carolina State University enough, because again, someone took a chance on this young boy from Halifax County, North Carolina. And I remember being in my interview and they asked, well, why you? And I looked at them and said, well, why not me? When we think about just the sheer number of the all 100 counties that exist, I visited somewhere around 83 or 84 of them. I understand through and through your mission and why you're trying to find unique ways to ensure that not only folks here in the Raleigh, Durham, in these major metropolitan areas are thriving, but also those in those rural spaces. And being from Eastern North Carolina, I can attest to, some of the things that are necessary. And so, again, points of contact. I have an economics degree. I'm in business administration. I've been deeply rooted in community because of the law enforcement experience and just the overall experience of growing up in those rural spaces. And it just made sense. And so, I am blessed to have now been here for 2 years and serving in the capacity of communications director. And man, it has been a wild ride 2020, but we're finding unique ways to continue to push forward and make things happen. So it's job security. Me and my vice provost and director talk about it all the time. We say, hey, listen, man, what COVID has done is certainly given us a number of emerging issues to talk about. So
emerging issues we didn't even know were there.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Okay, so I used to get the question a lot, what's your dream job? And I over time developed the response, I don't dream about work. So I will turn that on you and say, if you dreamt about work, what would be your dream job, dream career? That's a proxy for where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years? Because I don't want you to out yourself. You're employed. I don't want to mess with that. But where do you see yourself if you could wave a magic wand and let's say 20 years from now?
Man.
What would the dream job be?
Oh, man. Well, first and foremost, I still want to have a jump shot like former President Obama. I'm not sure if y'all saw that one trending on social, but he shot that shot, man, and was like, I do this. And so I want to say that somewhere along the line, I'll be doing this, right? And currently, I'm taking steps to be able to ensure that I'm able to do so. As I mentioned, I'm a lifelong learner. And so I'm in the process of pursuing my doctoral degree. But even in that sense, right, I go back to some of the things I've experienced and been exposed to, and something's weighing on me to think about law school and what that would even look like and how we can begin to like throw that into the family dynamic and mix during this time. But I would love to be someone's university chief communications officer. Maybe even play a larger role within a division of student affairs, because that's who gave me my start. And I'm telling you, it is something about educating and helping to shape and mentor the minds of young people and seeing the fruits of that labor. It's certainly something. But I also think about it in the sense, Scott, and it's a great question. I'd be crazy not to bet on myself, right? And how I continue to grow my own brand. And go after some of those entrepreneurial projects and endeavors that we have. Substantial media has been probably the best passion project turned hybrid full-time role and how we can continue to be a resource in that space is so important to me too. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it sounds like in 20 years, I'm going to be doing the exact thing I'm doing now. People are going to be introducing me and they're going to be like, I don't know where he finds time to do all of these things, but he does them all. And here's Greg.
Yes, you find time for the things that are important. And
Absolutely.
And I should note that in everything you've ever shared with us, sent to us, you always lead with is a husband and father. And so while this talk isn't necessarily about that, that might be another one in the spring. I do notice that you do always lead with that in terms of what you prioritize. So
absolutely.
The smooth segue to a question that we received from when folks were registering. Being that you are a first generation student, have you ever had to deal with imposter syndrome? And if so, how have you managed that?
Wow, that's a great question. So first and foremost, understanding what it is, I would say to some degree, right? Just this notion of questioning one's abilities and how they've gotten to a place of where they are, and if they're worthy or capable of being able to do it. I would kind of flip it to some degree though and say, I think what I experienced more were those unhealthy coping strategies, just giving the environments that I found myself in. And when I say unhealthy coping strategies, I've never drunk or smoked a thing a day in my life, so I'm not talking in that sense. But a colleague of mine and I, when you mentioned that we went around and done all of these, male mentoring summits and male summits and leadership summits and things like that, we speak about these coping strategies that exist within within our community. And when I say our community, I'm speaking to the African American community. And we find ourselves sometimes withdrawing, or to some degree looking to assimilate, or find ourselves completely being separated from the environments that we find ourselves in. And how we've kind of began to turn those into more healthy strategies is we affirm, right? And you affirm by simply knowing who you are, whose you are, whereby which you came from, and whereby which you're going. And so it's this notion of I am, and I am most certainly not. I will, and I will never. And so when I think about what that overall, the theology behind the imposter syndrome, I think it's there and it exists for a number of folks that find themselves the first of anything, but how they cope and how they deal with it will determine if they subdue themselves, if they're subdued by it. And so I don't know if that answers the question, but it's certainly a great one. And I think to some degree, we all kind of have those moments of doubt and like, man, I found myself when I was in Boca Raton, like looking around the room and going, it's like somebody gonna think I'm supposed to be here. Like, and if I think it or act like I'm not, then they probably gonna call me out. So let's figure out how we deal with this. So it's a great question.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Kind of bringing the plane down here. Any parts of your journey so far that are harder than you expected?
Well, look, if I could go back, you was bringing up some memories for me. And I think about the late Dr. Parker and some of them micro and macro classes. Like that was a hard part of the journey, man. We just wanted to get through it. But you know what it was for me was taking that leap of faith, right? And not being content. It's very easy to settle in when you're able to do something and to some degree do it well. And you can put that thing on cruise control, and to some degree, and I've said this in a number of different ways, but I categorize it and completely miss your destination that's been given to you by God, right? And I'm certainly a man of faith. And what I mean by that is, like, we sometimes put our lives on cruise control to the point of place by which we have missed out on some destinations, some predetermined stops that were along the way, but it was because we weren't looking for them. And so for me, the hardest part is always finding that moment where it's like, man, should I apply for this? Or, man, should I take this opportunity? Or should I pick up one more thing that's just going to add to the time of the day that's already limited? And so it's those difficult decisions that are most hardest for me. But my wife would tell you I'm one of those pros and cons guy. What happens if I do it? What happens if I don't? What happens if I do, and what it could possibly stem off or branch off to be? And so that's really how I look at some of those challenges. But that's the most difficult for me, is figuring out when to move on, or when to innovate, if you will, if I could speak to kind of the product life cycle, right? It's like, you've got a product, it's been introduced to market, it's selling, it's hot, it's good. But at some point, right, it's going to be dull. It's going to grow stagnant. And how do you revive it? How do you reintroduce it? How do you innovate it so that it meets new challenges? And that's when, additional education and things come into play.
Right. And how do you do it at the right time? I was
Absolutely.
just at something this morning talking about, those kind of life cycles when something hits its peak and then comes down. And as the iPod, those of us that know what an iPod is, the iPod was still climbing, and then Steve Jobs said, let's get rid of it, created the iPhone. And Microsoft, I guess, was just on his tail. I read a story that executives from Microsoft and Apple were talking, and he showed them the mock-up for the new Microsoft iPod type thing and how great it was and how much better it was than the actual iPod. And the guy looked at him and he was like, "You're right, it is," knowing that they were about to launch this iPhone thing, which has kind of changed the course of what we do. But like, while you're in the midst of a climb, to change direction in that way, take the short-term loss for what we have now. So
man, that is so interesting you say it that way. And I find myself all the time as a kind of a marketing communications guy trying to sell something or why we should do it a certain way. And I'm gonna have to use that because I often tell people, I say, well, you don't have to change. I say, but can you imagine if you still had that flip phone? Or if for whatever reason, the Apple computer was that big old thing that was clear in the back and it was like heavy and clunky. I said, wow, how many people have a tubed television now? Right? Can you imagine if the first airplane was the same airplane you got on to board to go to wherever it was that you were trying to get to as a destination? Right. Wow, look at all the innovation that has happened around you that you've accepted. Accept this one, right? Like just think about those things. We're and how it works. So you're absolutely right. That's spot on.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna get you out of here on some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
If anybody does have any questions for Greg, shoot them in the chat and we'll come back to them after the rapid fire. All right. Favorite things to do or places to go while you're in Greenville?
I'm gonna tell you, man, I've got to first and foremost hit the rec center or you know, just slide by the gorgeous new student center or at the time when it was the old one, just kind of going into Minden Hall and seeing old friends and colleagues and faces. That's kind of one of my favorite things to do because I'm so connected to people and want to make sure that those connections stay whole, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Have you played basketball against college students recently?
And let me tell you, being on a college campus, I find myself trying to relive those younger days often. And thank God for COVID because it's giving me a chance to rest a little bit. But I look, you know, that's the first thing I do, man. I get my membership to the rec center and I start scouting. I go in there, I be shooting a little bit. And I was like, hey, man, y'all mind if an old man run with y'all? Like, so.
It's hard.
It is. It certainly is.
Can you share with us a favorite quote, something you find inspiring?
Oh, absolutely. For me, it's the quote by Maya Angelou that says, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. That is certainly a quote that I not only live by to some degree. It's how I run my business. It's how I create relationships. And believe it or not, it's the quote that I used when I got the job at the Institute for Emerging Issues. It was the first thing I said, and it was the last thing I said. And then I asked the vice provost, I said, so how did I make you feel? And he was like, man, I'm like winking star. Like, you know?
Nice. How about a favorite book?
W.E.B. Du Bois, The Souls of Black Folk. And the reason I say that is because of one, my upbringing, but two, just throughout my journey, I have had a number of mentors, male mentors, and just mentors in general that have ushered me into this space of wanting to know my history, but then also continuing to forge forward and write it. And so W.E.B. Du Bois, The Souls of Black Folk, taught me about the notion of the double consciousness. And so I see that even right now in this particular time being so vital and so important, right? Think about when that book was written, when W.E.B. Du Bois lived his life, and even now, how that notion of, you know, we have to have two fields of visions. And when I say we, I'm speaking of Black African-American people in America. And one must be conscious of how we view ourselves, but we also must be conscious of how the world views us. And so I think that book has taught me so much and is one of my favorite reads.
Excellent. And how about a favorite tool or app you've been using? When I say tool, it could be a kitchen tool, garage tool, app on your phone. Favorite tool you've been using? That's
good. That's good. I'll share with you, man. My wife would tell you, I ain't got much life outside of work most times. And so my favorite, I'll share my favorite tool at work. it has absolutely got to be anything Adobe Creative Suite. It is the extension of my legacy. It's how I create graphics. It's how I help and assist with documentations and annual reports that's written. So shout out to anybody that knows Adobe Creative Suite and how much I love it. My favorite personal tool, I'm gonna say it's my 60 iron, man, because I chipped in for 2 birdies on my birthday, and I'm just, that's a tool, man. I enjoy it.
Outstanding. Excellent. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you. October 30th, man. Another
Nice.
revolution around the sun.
And then, do you have a final word or challenge to pirates, alumni pirates, and or students out there?
Yes. So my final words, and I had to think, wow, I'm just grateful. I'm grateful to ECU. I'm grateful to just a sheer number of those employees that were there at that great institution during my time, that saw something in me and gave me an opportunity to grow. I would challenge each and every pirate that's here on the call today and that'll be listening to this even later, to find your why. Understand your uniquely given purpose and go get it. Ask yourself, who am I? Whose am I? Why am I here? Where have I been? Where am I going? Where could I go? And even what will I contribute along the way and once I'm there? And just never stop learning, never stop trying, never stop. It's just resilience.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that. And we are about out of time, but thank you all for joining. Thank you, Greg, for sharing your time and sharing your pirate story with us. And I look forward to seeing and hearing all the continued fantastic things you're doing. Thanks again for checking in. If you want to learn more about Institute for Emerging Issues and their work, we've shared those links in the chat. Also, if you'd like to learn more about Greg and the work he's doing with Substantial Media, that link is also in the chat for your reference. We hope you'll continue to stay engaged with us, both in the time of the coronavirus and well afterwards. I'm hoping that afterwards comes sooner rather than later. To learn more about the Alumni Association and what we do, go to piratealumni.com. We have a ton of virtual resources out there for the time being, and please visit and take a look at any other items of interest. The Alumni Association functions based on gifts from our donors, so if you are inclined to do so, please consider a gift to the Alumni Association commensurate with your ability to give and your passion. They're all certainly very appreciated. Keep your eye on our social media outlets as we have Pirates Path events forthcoming bi-weekly for the remainder of the year. You can join us again on November 18th when 2000 and 2002 grad Dr. Carla Jones joins us. We often hear the phrase that someone is a jack of all trades and a master of none. Carla's journey began when she found herself in a cube at Wachovia, doing nothing that was associated with any of her degree. At that moment, she knew she had to find a way to get into the sports industry. So in 2 weeks, she'll share how she went from that cube to serving as a sport management faculty member at 4 universities at the same time. Until then, thanks again for joining us. We look forward to meeting in person when we can, but we will talk soon, and go Pirates.
All right.